My name's Matt. Lovely to see you all join. I'm the MD at BIMA. I'm really here just to give a little bit of context and introduce today's speaker. If you haven't been to one of these things before, this is a BIMA Masterclass. A BIMA Masterclass is essentially making use of this lovely eclectic mix of companies we've got in BIMA. So it's a deep dive into an area of specialism that one member has and the rest of the members can learn from it. And we do them on a range of topics. We've had two this month already. A couple of weeks ago, we had one around generative AI, and we've got one coming up, I think, around M&A, growth for agencies. So a real massive eclectic mix of subjects. Today's going to be really interesting because it's about influencers and trends that we're seeing this year. So Masterclasses happen every month. I've also got a list of other events that are coming up that I wanted to talk to you about. I'm going to leave that until the end because I think we're going to get straight into the presentation first. So this one's being run by Robin Gilly, who's a digital strategist at a BIMA member called Sunshine. Robin, I hope you're there and I hope you can see me because I'm kind of more or less done and I'm going to hand over to you to run this for us. I really appreciate you giving up the time and doing this for us. I hope everybody learns a lot from it. There's very little housekeeping with these things. It's a webinar, so your video's off. You can sit back and relax and enjoy the content, but we do try and make it as interactive as we can. So throughout the webinar and the presentation, feel free to ask questions in the Q&A functionality, and maybe myself or Robin will make sure that we get to them at some point. That's it from me. I'll do my little sales pitch at the end and I'll tell you everything else that's coming up. Robin, over to you.
Fantastic. Yeah. Thank you very much. Hello, everyone. So I'm Robin from Sunshine, the social agency. I'm really excited here to just discuss influencers in 2023. I'll take you through a little bit of why this should be part of your strategy. I know that we're always kind of selling into clients. So I always think it's nice to have a wee stat to drop in when we're in these conversations. I'll give you an overview of the workflow process that we've kind of developed at Sunshine, some little tips and tricks and things that have really come from working with influencers and being friends with influencers as well, and the tips they've given me. A little bit of types of influencers, measuring success, and I may even drop in everyone's new favorite app, Threads. We can have a discussion about that at the end if you'd like as well. And as Matt highlighted, please just pop in any questions that you have during. This is not a TED talk. I love like an open conversation. So anything that comes to your mind, I'm always happy to jump on with that as well. Perfect. So influencers in 2023. So where are we now? So around 14 years after influencers really hit our screen, kind of journeying back to your Casey Neistat, your Zoella, really when YouTube was at it's hitting its stride in its birth. We've been on such a journey and really grown up for some of us with them as well. But in 2023, I think we've definitely changed our relationship with influencers. It's a lot less lo-fi, it's much more polished and it's much more of a streamlined process than in the beginning days when we would be sending things in the post and just hoping for the best. Consumers are so much more careful with how they engage with influencers and the products that they choose with influencers as well. And we hold them to such much of a higher standard. For a lot of us, influencers feel like friends. So we really need to think carefully as when we're representing brands on how we engage with influencers and how we can make the most of it. But some good news, and the real reason that we're here today, influencer marketing is still growing. So I think that we've known for a few years, it's felt like it's maybe plateaued. We've really seen kind of, $16.4 billion in influencer marketing in 2022 in comparison to the sort of 1.7 in 2016. While there still has been that growth, it's maybe been a little bit slower. But what I'm delighted to say is that influencer marketing continues to grow year on year and is expected to be worth $21.1 billion in 2023. Wow. And while we are seeing, as I mentioned, the growth slowing, we still see that there's a lot of trust that consumers place in influencers. Around 8 out of 10 users saying that they had purchased something after seeing it recommended by an influencer. I mean, I don't know if that rings true for you, but it definitely does for me. Everything for the likes of Trip drinks. I remember the first can I picked up was because one of my favorite influencers had a sponsored post, all the way through to Faro and Ball and all things food as well. Any brand that really engages with influencers and does it in an authentic and meaningful way is really actually seeing purchases from that as well. But with that, and with platforms changing so much, we're really seeing that new platforms and new influencer styles are emerging. So TikTok is now the biggest influencer network that we need to consider, and communicating via video is going to be one of the key things that we will continue to do. Another thing that we are really seeing is influencers owning their own media. So the likes of influencers having their own apps, podcasts, ways that they can own their product, own their creativity, while also making direct money from that as well. So we really need to consider what platforms we engage with and how we find and meet our consumers there as well. So influencer content in 2023. So as I mentioned, no longer a static image with some sort of product somewhere in the background. Influencer content really has to entertain, inspire, and work very hard to capture attention. And I wanted to just jump into some of the key trends that I've been seeing, some of the great influencer content that we have seen. So first up here, we've got Frosted Flakes and Tony the Tiger, who appeared in his own stream on Twitch. And the way they worked with influencers in this capacity is they could see an insight that really linked to the fact that gamers tend to need snacks during when they're playing. A lot of the time they'll have a bowl of cereal or what have you. So they contacted some of the best performing influencer streamers on the platform, had an AI of Tony the Tiger playing the game himself. He was engaging with the influencers. It was a lot of fun, but the success of the campaign really hinged on the fact that they understood their consumers. So they understood, this is the platform you're on, this is how you're engaging, you like to sit and watch streamers, these are the favorite streamers that you watch, this is how we can input our how we can input our brand. I think it's hilarious, the idea that Tony the Tiger would be playing these games, but they had a really nice interaction between each of the influencers as well. Much more of a higher investment, as you're seeing there, but quite an interesting way to merge tech and influencers as well. And then we come down here to one of our first examples, Jake Shane. I don't know if anyone has interacted with Jake Shane on TikTok, but he's this hilarious TikTok star, and he tends to create scenarios based on prompts written by fans. So it's everything from please reenact the signing of the Declaration of Independence all the way through to like, please reenact what it would be like when Diet Coke finds out Coke Zero is being released. They'll just write in things and he'll kind of recreate these scenes of how he imagines them. And when Stanley Cup's Hydro Flasks got in touch and they said, we want to do that, we want to use your current style but make it an ad, and this is what they created, which is actually really fun and still does a lot of work for what the brand values are.
Hi. 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 Why are you still being cold? Yes, you are being cold. Yes, you are being cold. You said 5 hours ago, you were like, it's fine, I'm not mad. And we made up and this, that, the other, whatever. And now that you want to go talk to water and ice, you want to come back and be cold with me. I know what you're doing. It's not chill. I mean, technically it is chill, but it's not chill with me. Seriously.
Sorry. There we go. So again, catering to this idea of what audience expectation is. So everyone knew that he creates scenarios, he acts out these stories that feel very real. And then the brand using that and using those ingredients to highlight how cold their cups keep water. So this idea of this cup now being cold with them, again, just a nice way to play in, showcasing the brand's humor, and then actually highlighting a key component of what the Stanley Cup does as well. Also, I'm desperate for those cups. I've seen them all over TikTok. And then the last little example to talk you through here, but Dash Drink. So this is a slightly different way of using influencers or public figures, is actually bringing them into your own content as opposed to this typical sort of posted on their feed reaching their influencers. They took a well-known figure from Come Dine With Me and said, we want to make you part of our content series and bring you on board. And it was a great way to kind of create something that reflected the brand's style and was very much a campaign spike in a partnership sort of way, but also like still capitalizing on this cultural moment that people could connect with.
See what that tastes like. I'm Kev Riley, and I'm best known for putting a whisk in my mouth on Come Dine With Me.
At what moment did you realize that this was more than just a moment on Come Dine With Me?
I went for a meal. Instead of cutlery, they put 2 whisks there, and then they were coming out for selfies. And I was looking for a Valentine's Day card for my wife, and we found my own with my own face on.
Did you get
I absolutely love that episode of Come Dine With Me. But again, really touching on a cultural moment, bringing it into your own content. And the brilliance of actually with Dash, this was a launch of a product called it's like the line version of Dash. So it was people who had been in the limelight who maybe were there on accident. So again, it's this guy from Come Dine With Me, didn't necessarily expect to be such a viral meme, and now he's again part of the meme world and part of the content. And really it was kind of creating this overlap between the audience that they know are interested in Come Dine With Me, a cultural moment that they're aware of, and then still injecting their product into it as well. So a really nice, authentic partnership there. And of course, as promised, looking ahead or looking ahead, Threads is coming in as well. I think it's always really key to think about the new platforms and products that are going to be available. Threads is very much like Twitter in terms of where I'm seeing this sitting. Again, as touched on in the last slide, it's all going to be about authenticity. Are we going to maybe see influencers who are starting conversations based on certain products? Is it maybe going to be recommendations? There is a lot of opportunities that we're going to see develop. There's not been any major ads that I've seen yet to date, but again, I think we're going to begin to see that coming in. It's how do you make this authentic? Are you going to align with people that maybe are well known on the likes of Twitter and can bring that sort of style over? Is your product maybe, or the brand that you're working with, are they maybe known for short and snappy lines? Can we bring that in? Again, it's kind of finding that authenticity that is really key to what we're looking at with influencers in 2023. So I love a scenario. I think a great way to really look at this is to look at case studies and to find a way to kind of take you through my process as well. So we all together are now part of a brand called Dream Curls, a heatless hair curling brand. Now, before you all ask, yes, this is how I got my hairstyle today. We have had wonderful success on TikTok and Instagram. We've been doing really, really well. But the issue we're having is people that purchase Dream Curls are tending to only purchase it once. You know, they love the product, they use the product, they maybe recommend it, but we're actually struggling to get outside of our audiences. So their wonderful brand strategists, us, are going to propose an influencer engagement campaign as a way to expand the brand's reach and introduce ourselves to new customers. But how are we going to do it? Well, I think firstly, we need to have a look at the types of partnerships. Now, much of this is going to be budget dependent, but one of the first things that we consider when we're looking to influencers is what kinds of partnerships can we do? What feels right for the brand? What feels right for our goals? So we know our goal is we want to expose ourselves to new audiences. We want to find new opportunities to engage with new people. And we have kind of 3 key tiers that I like to, when I'm presenting to clients, to try and give them an overview of, okay, where roughly do you sit? Where's your budget here? Gifting and event attendance. I think first and foremost, what I would say is the industry is really moving away from gifting. I think that we know now that we really have to pay influencers for their content. They put a lot of work into it, and for a lot of influencers, it is their full-time job. So when we're gifting, it has to be something that either, you know, we can send out a lot of PR packages for, and they're happy to just receive PR packages and recognize there's no obligation, or we're maybe an event or an experience that's very high price. And in that case, we will likely get content, but again, it's still no obligation. So I think that the main thing with this is we don't have control over outputs, and really it's not something that we can build an entire campaign around. I would also say it's more useful for product launches. If we're really just trying to get a view of, do people like this product? That would be a good way to do it. Another top tip that I would say is I like to consider gifting as a great way to introduce myself to, or introduce a brand to an influencer. So we may send a gift out to say, hi, like, we're just thinking about you. We really love your content. We wanted you to have this. There's no obligation here. We hope you like it. And again, it's just a nice way to introduce. You're kind of already giving something and you're saying, look, you know, we're thinking about you. And I think it's a nice way to just begin those conversations. I've got a few examples of some really nice gifting on the next page. And I think you can see the opportunities that you can use there. Next up, sponsored posts. Again, much more control. There's a contract, there's a goal, you have that all there. It can often help with your content bank. You really get a chance to approve the content and make sure that the key messaging really comes across, and you get to build a nice ongoing relationship with an influencer. So again, sponsors posts is probably what the majority of us do. It's the main place we tend to sit in terms of budget, and it can really range depending on following from your kind of 10 to 20K, depending on the amount of content and obviously who you're engaging with as well. And then lastly, campaign collabs. I think that the industry is seeing much more of these now. We're much more operating more of a campaign spike of, you know, we will have certain influencers that we'll work with year round. We maybe like, I'll say, look, over the next 3 months, we want to do this, this, and this with you. But in the majority of what we're talking about here, it's likely in your campaign moments, you're really going high investment. Maybe the influencers are appearing in your content. Maybe they're doing a number of content series. Maybe they're appearing at an event with you. It's much more of a rounded out package. And it's a nice chance to really build something with someone. So looking at some examples now, I really love this example top here from Ocean Spray to Elise Myers. So Elise Myers, she's a really famous TikToker in the US. She's so funny, does a bunch of different things, really talented. But she's been pregnant at the moment, and she's actually really been struggling with like morning sickness and things like that. She's not been feeling her best. And she mentioned on her Instagram story, just in kind of a throwaway comment, actually, I've been making this drink with cranberry juice and lemonade, and it's delicious and it gives me sugar. And when I can't eat, it's actually like a really nice thing to keep me going. And Ocean Spray heard this, obviously under no obligation for her to post. They just sent her with her own little cocktail card and some cranberry juice as well, and a drink, and just branded stuff, just to say, hey, we heard this. We'd love to hear that you're, you know, enjoying our drink. Here you go. Again, there's no obligation. You're really just sending it to say, we're active in the community. We hear you. We see you. We really appreciate it. And she loved this so much, it became a grid post. So it's a really nice way to kind of introduce yourself to a brand. I do think eventually they'll probably do something a bit more long-term, but it's a nice way to just show that you're like a brand with humans behind it, and you really kind of are listening and you're engaging. And it's just a nice wee piece of content there. And then we've got a nice one. I'll not play it just because it's quite a long one, but again, it was an influencer called Tim Chiasmo. He is in New York, and he is a massive fan of baseball, and the Mets invited him and said, you can come and have the big Mets experience, meet everyone, have the whole experience with us, come and see. And this is, he did produce a piece of content, again, under no obligation, but this is a higher investment, once in a lifetime opportunity. So I think when you can give something like this that is really unique to the influencer, you may see a little bit more of content posted. But again, I think it's often good to think of gifting and event invites as a nice to have, but not necessarily something that's going to be the base of your influencer strategy. Coming on to sponsored posts now, I think there's much more opportunity for fun. Your brief can go much farther here. I love this one from Adobe, where they really just challenged creators who they knew were using the software to make something really exciting. And it was a nice wee sponsored campaign. So again, stop motion, they're kind of showing the video and how it was created. And then what they're doing here is also showing the background of it, which is really nice to see. And it's a really great way to showcase, how does Adobe work? What is the kind of background here? How do you import your files? How do you create something like we create every day for you? And I think this was the goal of the Adobe campaign, was actually to encourage uptake of the product. So it's a nice way to kind of showcase the service, showcase what it can do without it feeling overtly salesy as well. Oh, and then last one here, we've got campaign collaboration. So again, much higher budget. A lot of the time the influencers are appearing in the content themselves, like in the grid posts created by the brand. And I really actually love this one. I don't know if everyone's seen it, but it's from Hilton. It's a 10-minute ad, so I'll not play the whole thing, but they basically got in contact with a bunch of different influencers and kind of challenged them to make this 10-minute ad. And whoever people that watched it the whole way through got lots of goodies from Hilton. They got entered into competitions and things like that, but it was the creativity around using a bunch of different styles with influencers, showcasing all the wonderful different bits on TikTok as well. And it was really highly praised for the fact that it was so creative and it championed creators as well.
Would you watch a 10-minute TikTok?
No.
Well, you should. Because Hilton believes it matters where you stay. And the people that stay with this TikTok for the full 10 minutes are going to have a chance to win Hilton Honors points, experiences, swag, and more. Is it going to be you?
No. Good. Don't. But I will. And I'll get those Hilton Honors points. And I can say from personal experience that every stay with Hilton's family of brands is an absolute pleasure. Oh, sorry. Are you filming something? Yeah. Is it an ad? No. Oh, no. No. Don't do this. Why not? We don't want ads on TikTok. People hate them. No. People on TikTok hate corporations pretending to be people. They love good ads. And ads can be art, just like the plush beds and soft linen at Hilton can make sleeping into an art form. We can't do ads. It's not our thing. I think my new thing is enjoying staying at a Hilton. Is that a watermark? No. Does that mean we can't use the AR filter? Is your head a hotel? Yeah, you sell out. You traitor.
So again, really being so self-referential as well. I think one of the brilliant things about when you're working with TikTok creators is you really want to reference the fact that there are lots of online styles that we see on TikTok. There are lots of filters, there are lots of moments of inside jokes and really showing that you're interested in on the cultural conversations. I think that when we're bringing in really creative campaigns, we really want to showcase that we're not a brand talking down. We're not saying, this is why you should buy for X, Y, and Z. We're actually having a conversation with our customers, with our potential followers, and engaging with them and saying, we're a fun brand, we're interesting, here's our unique selling points, here are our values, but in a way that doesn't feel like buy, that actually feels like we're part of a community that we're trying to build here as well. So the process, so we kind of know roughly where we're seeing trends. We know kind of some overview of some opportunities and some different influencers there as well. So I wanted to take you through just how we would go for our full brief with Dream Curls as well. Maybe consider some opportunities and some tips and tricks along the way. So in terms of a workflow process, we like to take it through basically about this. I think there's a few other little bits there, but this is how it kind of categorizes down. So really looking at scoping. So I'll have a look at little audiences, who we want to engage with, creating that list. Due diligence, so just really making sure that the brand values of the people that we're working with are reflected in ours as well, and it makes sense and it's going to be an authentic partnership. Outreach, briefing, guidelines and contracts, all that lovely sort of admin stuff that needs to be done and is really important. Delivery and posting, and then of course reporting as well. So scoping, I think it's the biggest question we get all the time is, how do we find influencers? How did you find these people? Where did they come from? I think we get this absolutely constantly. And I think it's like, it's not an exact science. My biggest thing and my biggest piece of advice, and especially when working with community managers, is that it makes it so much easier if it's a constant job, if it's a constant conversation. So using the likes of hashtag tracking and social listing. I think if you're reporting every month on a social account, or if you're looking at a social account regularly, you can still be using that time really well to just look at who are the industry leaders, who is the account following, who are we engaging with, who's speaking within our circles. So if we're thinking about our lovely brand Dream Curls, it may be like we'll follow maybe some hairdressers and some hair people. We love them. We think they're great voices and thought leaders, but we also may be following the likes of some lifestyle influencers, people that really give tips on efficiency and who are quite real and authentic about vlogging their daily lives and being honest that not everyone has time to do their hair, but Dream Curls could be the solution to that as well. And looking for potential collaborators there. I think that we also need to look at, with our accounts, where are the top performing content, what themes are coming out, and what are the correct platforms as well. I think the key thing is, when we're looking at influencers, we often get wrapped up in like, oh, this is the best person on TikTok. But it's like, actually, is our audience there? Is that useful for them? Is that a place that they feel like they're wanting to engage with influencers? Or are we better on other places? Would we be better considering maybe a Pinterest influencer? Because people are going to be searching for curls, or they're going to be searching for different things as well. And having this as part of your daily community management, as I said, I think that while this may cross teams, it's always good to say, hey, like, you know, when you're outreaching or commenting, like, can you just keep an eye on different influencers or what have you? What's something I really did find is actually working with an exec who was doing community management on my account quite a bit. I said, listen, we're thinking about working with this influencer, maybe in the space of the next 6 months. And we're going to be reaching out in 2 months, let's say. And she just started following, making sure we were following, because there's nothing worse when you go to reach out to an influencer and the account isn't following that account. But also making sure that she just went in and commented a few times under certain videos, love this, or, oh, can you share that recipe? That's great. Oh, we love it. Like, just making sure that the brand was engaging, so that when it felt like we were coming to discussing if they'd like to work with us, it felt like it was already a brand that was well known to them, and there was kind of a relationship built. And also as well, if regular fans were to see that, they could see, okay, these two would work together. This isn't just coming out of nowhere. This is a partnership that makes sense. Secondly, really looking at your audience research as well. I think the thing with finding these paths of what's going to work is actually, is my audience interested in these influencers? Does this make sense for them? Is this working for the demographic? So I know that this can be difficult depending on what platform, but in terms of purely manual, you can look at things like what hashtags are in the UGC, what are people following, what are the higher accounts that people are following, what accounts are we following, does this kind of make sense with our subject matter, and really having a look at if there is this parallel between the influencer we're thinking about working with and the brand itself, and looking at the industry hashtags as well. And then lastly, so just kind of, again, an opportunity if this is something that you're looking to have a bit more data for, if you're looking to sell this in and you actually need more data, the likes of Hype Auditor and Upfluence can also give you that statistics and insights about potential influencers if you really need them. But in terms of, again, a more manual way to do that would be engagement rates. So looking at, okay, roughly what's the reach of this influencer and how engaged are they? What are the comments looking like? What are people talking about? How do people react to their ads usually? It'll give you a good idea of kind of where the influencer is sitting. And then again, looking at how content can support key themes, past partnerships, and of course, audiences as well. So just making sure you're taking those things into account when you're scoping that out. And then, of course, the other point to really consider is size. And I know that this changes constantly. I think we always know there's a bunch of different sizes, a bunch of different ways to work with influencers. So we've got nano, micro, mid-tier, macro, and mega. I think these aren't set, they're super fluid. But I think what's important to consider is just how different campaigns can be used. So if you're maybe speaking about something that's quite hyper specific, you know, it could be a cause or a charity, it could be something that only certain people will use. If it's maybe slightly more high investment, you might want to sit yourself around the nano and the micro sort of area. We all have influencers that we follow, and it's for a very specific reason. Like I'm really into Dungeons and Dragons. I follow a bunch of Dungeons and Dragons influencers who range in the nano and the micro because I'm looking for tips. They don't really talk about much else. Their focus is Dungeons and Dragons because it's super specific. But I would trust them more with kind of ads related to Dungeons and Dragons because I know that that's what they follow and that's what they're interested in, and that's kind of authentic to them. They are lower cost. And they're a great way to kind of begin to build out a nice community of influencers that you work with on a regular basis. I think one thing I'd say is nano and micro can be great for sort of year-round influencers that you continue to work with on different capacities. And they are experts in their field as well, which means that they can really speak with a voice of authority about your area. Mid-tier and macro here, so a bit of a wider reach. And they will have high engagement. I think the difference here is their content may range a little bit. It may have slightly different areas. You might have fashion, but maybe a few other little bits, or you may have kind of more of the health side, wellness and gym. So again, you'll see that they will maybe mold across a couple of different areas. And their audience data may reflect that as well. So I think when we're engaging with influencers, especially on the kind of macro and mega level, we do need to look at influencer audience insights, because actually we want to still assure that this aligns with the audiences that we want to speak to, and make sure that we're not kind of putting budget into a place that doesn't feel the most authentic as well. So that kind of gives an overview. I think there's a lot of different opportunities there. And I would say my biggest recommendation is that you work with a mixture as well. I think especially if you're in a niche subject, you absolutely need to be working with nano and micro. But you also might in a campaign spike moment say, right, macro and mega, this is the moment we're wanting mass awareness. We want to drive as many people getting to know us as possible. That is perfect for those moments. And to just range it back then to our brief, when we're talking about we're wanting to reach new audiences and we're wanting to try and find some new people for our products, it may be macro and mega that we go to. We may have nano and micro running year round, but actually right now we're like, okay, we're kind of fatiguing our audiences. Let's switch it up and put a pot of money towards someone like macro and mega. So I think when we're selling into clients, just being like, here's your goal, let's lead it back to who are the right people to speak to as well. Perfect. And yeah, any questions at all, just jump in. Outreach and negotiations, I'll not spend too long because I'm very conscious on time here, but I think the biggest thing is just meeting people where they're at. I think like when we were thinking about that Dash Drinks example with the guy from Come Dine With Me, we may see that we outreach to him in a slightly different way. We may be going to an agent, we may be contacting directly on Instagram. He might not have a set process, but our digital influencers will tend to. They may have a contact form, they may have representations. I think it's just doing your research and making sure you're right in the right place. And then I would say absolutely get a call in, get that initial stage, get the rate card, have a look at your content rights as well. I think that's something that's majorly changed within our industry in the past few years is content rights and advertising rights have become a key part of how we think about influencers. We can't necessarily be promised that we're actually going to be able to use the content forever because that's not how it works. We actually only tend to have kind of 6 months or something for content, and then it does have to be removed or we can't advertise it anymore. So making sure that we're super clear on how long do we have this content for and how long do we want to have it for as well. If we're looking to own it forever, making sure that we can do that, making sure that we know what our needs are. I think for the likes of Dream Curls, if we're in a campaign spike moment, we might only really need it for 3 months because we're just looking to reach as many people as possible. It's okay if that goes away after because we'll have brought everyone in at that point, and that's where our always on content kicks in. That's where we've got our humor, that's where we've got our education pieces, that's where our regular advertising hits. But actually, you know, it doesn't matter if we have that content for too long, but if a sort of micro or macro influencer produces a really nice piece of how-to content, we might actually feel like, do you know what? Let's make sure we have that for a wee while because it's really useful. It's a really great way to show people how the product works. And that's something we don't necessarily have in our content calendar. Briefing and guidelines. So I'll not spend too long on guidelines, just that they range per country, making sure that we're aligning with ASA and having our contracts, making sure they're up to date as well. I think one thing I did want to touch on is briefing. I think it's really important to sit down with influencers and find out exactly what they want. I think that some influencers that I'm working with at the minute and people that I work with on a regular basis, I'm thinking of one in particular, and she's brilliant. She's a travel influencer, but she always says to me, Robin, just give me the key messages. What do you want me to say? And I'll make sure I hit that, but I want to have the freedom for creativity. So she'll be like, just tell me, let's say we were, a travel board in France. She would say, just tell me you want me to say when we should travel to France, why France is great and the weather or something. If you want me to mention all those things in my content, I will. How I do that, I want to come up with that myself. And I think it's kind of aligning client expectations and saying, look, we want them to have as much creativity as possible, or is there something you really want highlighted there as well? So she very much kind of will always say to me, I want to have as much freedom as possible. Other influencers, and especially those that are maybe starting their influencer journey, they might never have worked with an agency before. They might say, can you be really prescriptive? Can I sit down with your creative team and actually talk about what do we want frame 1, frame 2, frame 3 to look like? How do we tell this story? So I think it's about saying, offering them the opportunity and saying, hey, we can sit down with you and take you through, but also maybe as well give me the space to have a think about it. So just really being super clear on that in the brief and getting really sort of clear with that in before then. I think we want to get to the point with briefs where the influencer kind of knows what they're going to read before it arrives as well. It's meeting their expectations. Just key things for the brief. Again, when do we need this by? When do we want it posted? What will amends and reviews look like? Key hashtags, key messages for the brand. I think that sometimes, we sometimes think, oh, influencers are going to have time to go through our whole website. It's a bit unfair, really. We have to say, look, these are the key messages we want you to hit. We want you to hit, come to travel to this place. This is why, and this is for how long, and give them that opportunity to make sure they fulfill those things. And then kind of allow the content to speak for itself as well. Do's and don'ts. So swearing, I think that especially on the likes of TikTok, we see a lot more swearing. We see a lot of kind of people using different internet speak and things like that. It's like, okay, is that okay for our content? Is that appropriate for our content? Is that within our tone of voice? So just making sure that we're super clear on what we expect as well. And then just making sure that approval process, how this is going to be delivered, how we will deliver our feedback, and what are the metrics of reporting that we expect to hear back on. So just making sure that everything's super clear. The brief tends to take precedence over the contract. So it's just really important to make sure that that is completely to the T of what we need as well. And some content examples. I'm not going to spend too long on these because I am mindful of time, but we can create content styles. So we can say we're launching this content style and we want you to jump on it. This may be like a fashion video or a particular sort of dance or style we're looking for. We can get people to jump on trends that already exist. So dances, styles that already exist, and giving kind of a branded twist on them. I think that this one from the film Babylon that came out, they worked with an influencer. They said, we're trying to get people to use this filter and use this trend in a particular way. But we've been seeing a lot of people using outfits for it. Can you jump on this trend and kind of do a mixture of both?
Honey, you don't become a star. You either are one or you ain't. I am.
Super simple, showcasing an outfit, kind of, again, you've got the branded messaging there as well, but just really showcasing kind of the trend itself, the influencer, and then the messaging. So really, really simple, but when the brief, there will be quite a lot of direction there in terms of how it needs to look, the language, the sort of language that will be in the background. It will be a line from the film. There will be a watermark. There will be dancing, kind of just being super clear on what we're wanting there as well. This next one, so again, one of my favorites, Trip, this is about brand messaging. So we need you to say all of these things within this. We actually want you to use a vlog style that you typically use, but we want these key messages here.
Trip seemingly infused drinks are my refreshing alternative to alcohol and fizzy sodas. They are available in 3 delicious and light flavor combinations. My favorite is elderflower and mint.
And then again, so you've got really clear upfront messaging. You're getting that out at the beginning because, you know, it's TikTok, you know, you've only got kind of 3 seconds to capture that attention, and then moving into the rest of the content, which is very much kind of a vlog style. So I think it's just being really clear on what that looks like. And then lastly, so this one kind of, as we saw with Jake Shane at the beginning, the guy who's kind of acting out different scenarios, taking an existing thing that the influencer does and putting your own branded ad twist on it as well. So kind of making sure that you've got that space to play and that the influencer is kind of highlighting something that the audience is already used to seeing, but you're managing to get your messaging in. I think Remy, the influencer here, she does this really, really well. So she does a content series where she tries on different outfits, and it's like a realistic haul. So it's like, you know, this is what it looked like in the magazine or in the catalog, and it's not coming out the way I want, the fabric's not right, or maybe the model poses in a slightly odd way or what have you, and she'll act that out and showcase just like how brands can sometimes advertise something that's very different to what arrives. So this is her usual haul.
Back again with a realistic H&M haul. Oh, I love that. Just kidding, I figured it out. yes, this is my natural hair. I never wear it like this, but it's time that you like know what I really look like. Okay, this is actually very cute. Just really happy that these jeans fit me perfectly. Wait, they look fire. Okay, ignore.
So she's really talkative, she's chatting away, she can be a little bit sarcastic at times because she's you know, sometimes she's making fun of the brand, or sometimes the brand isn't working the way that it is advertised. So she's having conversation. It's a really lovely content style. And then Amazon have come in and said, we love this content style. We want you to do a haul of our clothes.
Back to school, baby. I'm sorry to upset those that are in summer mode, but Remy Bader has already moved on to fall. So I'm going to show you some things that I ordered from Amazon, since I'm an Amazon girly now, that I'll be wearing for fall. Okay, so these jeans are good American.
It's still her style, it's still her personality, it's still what I expect from her when I open up TikTok, but it's still lovely and it's still feeling like there is advertising of the brand. There were people asking about the dreams, there were people purchasing the jeans after this because Remy was showcasing them in such a lovely way, but it still felt like it wasn't too heavy on advertising. So from this, we're having a look at our briefing, we're thinking about our content, and we might say to ourselves, right, okay, we're going to maybe do we're going to take an existing content series from one of our influencers, and we're going to have that there. We're also going to have one that's maybe more of a how-to with our brand messaging to really have a mixed content package. And then we're maybe going to have something a little bit on the larger end of the scale, a bit of a collaboration. We'll maybe sponsor a podcast for a few episodes, and we'll make sure we have that there. So we're kind of ensuring that every brief feels like it's catered to the influencer as well. Key trends in terms of what we're seeing with briefing and what we're seeing with content in 2023, we're really seeing the growth of UGC influencers. So very much that kind of nano side of things. UGC influencers creators don't tend to appear on camera, and the content they create is to be purchased by the brand. It can be a really nice low investment way to find influencers that can work for you. So definitely something if your brand is not looking to spend too much money, but needs to have their content package become a little bit larger. UGC creators are a really good opportunity there. And it's super simple, reorganized. And it was a piece of what goes on the shelf there that is actually the content that they're looking to advertise. Then you've got niche topics here. So this is very much cottagecore, really looking at, okay, what's a really niche part of our brand that we need to speak to with people? We've got, of course, with the rise of TikTok, brands creating their own sounds as well. So when we're thinking about briefing, can we speak to an influencer who maybe produces music and maybe they create a song for our brand? It'll never be as iconic as Katy Perry's Just Eat. I mean, it is just the perfect song. But can we find a way to bring in music that can be used on TikTok and cater to the platform that we're on as well? And then lastly, authentic photo dumps. Again, a slightly different style here, but this one from Emma Chamberlain is actually a sponsored post for Aritzia, which is a clothing brand, but it has her holiday photos in because that's what Emma does. It feels so authentic. It feels like she's showing me where she's been on holiday. But also within it, there's ideas for outfits. There are other products within the carousel. It's a really nice way to kind of keep it super authentic, but then also to have something that feels still that advertising style. I mean, really, with some of these images, you could pop them in a magazine, but it's that nice balance with Emma as well, that it's what her fans expect. And then delivery and posting. So again, we've highlighted our brief, we know who we're speaking to, we've drawn up our contracts and we've sent them on, and we come back with the content. So typically within contracts, we're going to say probably 2 rounds of amends. That is kind of the industry standard. And really just getting super cohesive on your feedback as well. I think a lot of the time, if it's something that's super timely, there isn't an opportunity to reshoot. So we have to be super constructive in what we're saying. Is it about annotating what's on screen? Do we actually need a reshoot? And we can make time for that, but just making sure our feedback is together, that the agencies and the clients come at the same time as well, and giving them a reasonable time to make adjustments. So we need to make it very brief, very clear, and maybe even get on a call and just talk them through, okay, Frame 1 looks great. Frame 2, it's a little bit shaky. Is there any chance, do you have anything that's maybe a little bit less shaky? Or you know, could we incorporate more of a lifestyle angle here? So we've kind of got all those different parts, and they're super clear on what they're amending. It comes back, another review, maybe we're adding some text on screen, and then we're ready to post. So it's just ensuring that we deliver feedback in a really constructive way. I'm asking for X, Y, and Z, and this is what I would like going forward. And then tracking. So I think there are a bunch of different ways to track content once it is posted. But kind of the key areas that we've been looking at the minute, and the ones that tend to be growing, are the likes of discount codes. I think more and more we're getting demand from influencers and from brands of, we want to track, did this work for us? Did this paid evidence? What is the ROI? So ensuring that we have discount codes there, making sure that there's kind of an opportunity to track that. Is it their name, 20% off, that really incentivizes people looking at our brand to pop online and to purchase it? Making sure we can track that on the web end as well. So hooking up with the web team beforehand and saying, is this going to work? Is the user journey right? Affiliate links are another way to do that as well. Obviously, there'll be a commission element with influencers there, but that is an opportunity and a really good way to track. And then, of course, your classic UTM codes. And I think UTM codes are getting more and more important, because I know that we're seeing tracking kind of move away on websites. We're not seeing, you know, with cookies going and things like that, we're definitely seeing tracking changing. UTM codes are super clear. They're a great way to categorize activity by different influencers. And it means that you can provide the link as well. So I think that definitely UTM codes is where we are leaning towards. So just to circle back to our dream curls from the beginning. So as we said, we have decided on, we're going to have 2 pieces of static content here. We're maybe going to look at a campaign collaboration with the therapy crouch on a regular basis. And we're maybe going to look at a few memes on threads, let's say. So this is definitely around our kind of mega celebrity. It's going to be much of a higher purchase rate. It's going to be much higher, but it's going to drive that mass awareness that we're looking for to new audiences. Then we've got our influencer content here, really tapping into the kind of lifestyle-y side of things.
I'm on a little road trip right now, and I just got to Starbucks. I'm about to go in and pee because I'm about to pee my pants. But I refuse to go in with this on my head. So we're going to take it out. I've been doing the little cross method, and I like it so much better. All right. She's looking promising thus far. She's looking promising. Take her out. I personally like the roller because it gives me some volume. I'm telling you, this thing never fails me. 2 minutes to put in your hair and then no heat. This is what you look like the next day. I'm going to try and show you guys the back.
I mean, that is the perfect ad for our brand. I think we're definitely going to be a bunch of new orders there as well. But what's great about that is it's really catering to her content style. So she's a creator that's super real, she's super authentic, and she's creating lifestyle content. So I think we're really happy with that piece of content. It's really showcasing the product. And she also uses kind of a new way that she does it as well, which is interesting to see. A really nice piece of content, really humorous. And then kind of the other end of the scale, like we were talking about, more of that brand messaging style here.
Let me show you one of the best and easiest ways to do your heatless curls. First, take a curling rod and a hair tie and tie the rod into a circle. Leave out a couple inches on the end because this is what we're going to tie the ends of your hair to. Now just put it on your head, making sure.
So very much in the how-to style, she's showing us how she does it, really taking us through that process. And it's a really nice piece of content, and actually might be one that we look at for longer content rights, because that could set us the perfect how-to, even on our YouTube channel or maybe in a YouTube Shorts. And when we're getting questions on community management of, I can't get this right in my hair, we can direct them to the link, which has an influencer they know that's super approachable, and it's a really nice video as well. And then on the micro end of the scale, we've maybe got a few memes that will be going out on threads, just little bits that are quite humorous. They'll be perfect for us to reuse on our own channels. We'll maybe look at content rights for those, but we've kind of got that whole journey and a really mixed media content package as well. So all the way through from kind of your larger influencer owned apps that are driving that mass awareness, introducing us to a new audience that don't last that long. And we've kind of got our kind of middle area, mid-tier, where we've got humorous, showcasing funny, showing that we're in on the joke around the platform. We've got a how-to, which is very brand awareness focused, and we've got everything all the way through to kind of just little memes and little pieces of content as well. So really nice content package for us. we've done so well. I'm so proud of us. And then lastly, reporting, my favorite piece, not necessarily everyone's, but I think with reporting, more and more, we just need to identify, okay, what were our digital objectives? So as we said at the beginning, our digital objectives were, we wanted a new audience to look at Dream Curls. So how do we measure that? Well, we're of course going to look at our key performance metrics. We're going to look at engagement, reach, views, impressions. I think for me with this campaign, because we're really focused on that piece of new audiences and awareness, it'll be that Spotify result that will really drive us there. So it's okay, how many listeners did we get? Did we have anyone clicking on our ad? Did we have a spike in web traffic during that time? Really looking at how we view that journey. Awareness is the goal though, and I think it's important when we're talking to clients about what is the objective of this campaign, making sure the metrics and the KPIs reflect that as well. And even doing a bit of a KPI session of saying, okay, what does good look like for you? Because if it is more orders, maybe we're not sitting in the awareness area, maybe we're sitting somewhere else. Keywords and hashtags, did we find that these spiked over this time? Were there people on Twitter going, is Dream Curls real? Does it work? I've seen it mentioned on the therapy couch, or I've heard it mentioned on the therapy couch. Does it work? Our UTM links, of course, to see which influencers kind of drove the most traffic, what the quality of that traffic was, what their journey was. I think more and more with the web journey, we're really looking to see what happened and did it work. Site traffic, sales conversions and leads, and then of course, how much did we spend and what did we get back? So that's just a quick overview of reporting, but I'm so aware that there's not too much time for questions. So I just wanted to kind of open it up. Any questions you have, any areas that you want me to jump back on there. I think more than anything, what we're seeing with influencers in 2023 is it's about authenticity. It's about really making sure that we're catering to that style, going where the platform is and reflecting our audiences as well. If they're not on TikTok, we're not going to be using influencers on that platform. Perfect.
Thanks so much, Robin. That was really interesting and expertly presented as well. I got, as you do, got called off halfway through. So I have my own question, but there are a couple of others. There's one in the chat, which I'll put to you now, and there's another anonymous one that's been sent in. Jenny's asked about what sort of budgets are you looking at for influencers, ranging from X to X?
Yeah, it's such a difficult one because I think it can range completely. I think it really depends on if we're sitting on that kind of micro end all the way through to our kind of mega more of the celebrities. I think celebrities are quite difficult because every single one will have a different area. I would say that per piece of content is really difficult. It will be based on followers and what that influencer tends to charge. But in terms of if you're recommending a budget and you're thinking, right, we're mainly going to go with kind of mid-level influencers, we maybe want to work with 5 to 10, you're looking at maybe sort of 10 to 20K, maybe a bit, actually maybe a little bit more, but it really depends on the platform as well. I think the main thing to kind of go in with as well is like, you know, content rights are going to affect that as well. So just being really clear on what you want and also upfronting as well and saying, actually, we have this budget at this stage. What can we do with you? We'd like to work with you. What can we do with you? And giving the influencer an opportunity to say, do you know what? This doesn't work for me, but stories will, or my friend's actually an influencer who, you know, this budget works for them or what have you. I think getting in with your network as well and kind of building those relationships and that trust.
I've got another one. This is an anonymous one. It's they can hear, and lots of the examples, and I could hear it. There are a lot of American accents in some of the examples. Is that like what's happening in the US? Is that a leading? Let me just read it out for you. Is the US leading the way in terms of influencer marketing, and how does it compare with other geographies?
So I would say that the US is definitely sort of leading in terms of, I think it's quite a dominant voice in that sphere. I think there are some wonderful influencers out with of that sphere. Particularly in the likes of Australia and in the UK as well. I think we can't forget that the UK has actually had a really strong influencer market for a lot of years. I think that what I would say is it really depends on your target market as well, and meeting them there as well. I think that actually in the UK, a lot of UK audiences actually engage with a lot of American influencers. So start with your, audience insights first and say, actually, I know that my audiences are really engaged with US influencers, so maybe we'll look at those. Does your brand deliver internationally as well? So just thinking about those areas, but I would say there are influencers in every single country. There's some wonderful influencers across the globe. I think the key is to just connect it with, your audiences, and also the goal of your brand, and also where your brand delivers as well.
Yeah, that's interesting. I was going to ask about whether, a UK market is going to be led by US influencers, whether that matters, but clearly it doesn't. Let me see. I've got one. Yeah. This is about successes and failures within influencer marketing. I'm gonna amend that slightly, because everybody wants to hear stuff that's gone wrong. That's everybody wants to know about that stuff.
Yeah.
Have you had any stories where it's just not quite worked for a reason?
Yes, and do you know what? I think that's why I place so much importance on the brief, is because actually I've had a lot of issues where I've maybe not been really clear, and it's my fault. I've not communicated what the brand wants, or maybe I've been working with a client and they've just said, we want influencer content, and I've gone, cool, I'll get you some influencer content. And we come back and it's, it doesn't feel authentic. I think where brands go wrong is they'll say, we want influencers, and there'll be a full stop. It's a conversation. It's about going in there and saying, how can we work creatively together? And it wasn't until I started having friendships with influencers and started saying, okay, what do you like? What do you dislike? And getting to that stage is where I actually really felt like I was getting good content, not being afraid to pick up the phone as well, or having a Zoom call and saying, what about this? What about that? Treat it like a brainstorm. Treat them as like a contractor on your team, rather than an influencer. Treat them as someone who, you're coming on board with us for a little while. Let's work together and create something that works together, because we both have the same desired goal, which is success with this product. So that's where I've really felt where like I've lacked, and where the content's lacked. I've had content before, watched it and gone, oh no. I think that the industry has moved on so much since then as well. In the beginning stages, it was a static picture and a product somewhere in the background, but now it's more of a focus on how do we tell a story as well. And I think influencers are getting they're having much more like open conversations. I try and listen to podcasts with influencers as well, because a lot of the time we'll talk about things I don't like from brands, and I go, right, okay, I'll not do that anymore as well. So I think main failures have been my own briefing. I think as well, you just have to create a relationship that works. And if it doesn't feel like an authentic relationship, that's when that does happen.
It does feel like it's accessible from a price point though, just to be a bit more experimental with it. I mean, would you find that's quite often, you quite often get brands saying, we just want to kind of give it a go, dip a toe in the water. We've been told we should do something, we don't know where to start. And then it's just about building up the budgets thereafter, right?
Absolutely. And using your community management. Use your community management to find influencers. I think that's the best influencers I've ever worked with have been people that we found just from outreaching daily, being online with them as the brand. Because it feels more authentic. And again, I come back to that word, but I think it's just for so long, I think that was the criticism of influencer content. It didn't feel real. So now we as brands have to do that job of being like, actually, this fits our brand values. This is who we are. This is someone that represents us, and making sure those connect.
Yeah. If anybody else has any more questions, please put them in the Q&A. The one that I wanted to ask, now apologies, I said I did get pulled off halfway through, so I don't know if you've covered it, but at the moment, if I'm not at BIMA, if I'm not being asked about generative AI, this last week I'm being asked about threads.
Yeah.
I know we sort of half joked about it when you started, and you said, "Oh, we'll cover it a bit." But what have you got a viewpoint on how that might kind of impact things next year or two?
I think that I'm not seeing. I mean, like I've done kind of small campaigns with influencers on Twitter. So I have experience in that format, I don't know exactly if that's what that's going to look like. And frankly, I think that there is so much work technologically that needs to be done. There's no For You page on Threads. It doesn't feel like yet that it reflects who I would want to follow. Like I was saying this to the team the other day, I was like, I feel like I need to find like the media organizations again so that I can see links, or maybe I need to follow people who are going to tell me facts, like what did I used to follow on Twitter and how should this look on Threads. I think until people are happy with the feed that is arriving to them, I wouldn't necessarily be recommending brands are engaging with Threads as an ad. I think that it could be a nice to have, it could be a nice way to kind of look at that platform, but I think influencers also need to work out their content strategy. The influencers that I've spoken to, especially in the travel and photography landscape, are saying, well, I don't know if Threads is for me. You know, the carousel feature is nice, but is this where I should be, or am I better on Instagram and TikTok? So I think until influencers have found their content strategy, we need to, as marketers, be reaching out, speaking to people, but also just kind of taking our time with it. I think that what ads might look like is links. It might be links to content, it might be images, it might be sort of memes or jokes or really short one-liners, but there's not as much room to play on Threads. So ads become much more of a tricky scenario. So I think it's maybe just thinking about, we need to wait for this platform to really build out into what it is. We need to see where our influencers go with it, if they feel like they can do something great with it, and then also cater to what they need and what our content needs. I think with TikTok, we have so much more of an opportunity to tell a story. Threads, it might take a bit longer to find what that story is and how we tell that story.
And thank you so much for doing that. And thanks for joining, everyone.
Thank you. Thanks very much. Thank you.
See you later. Bye.
Bye.